Hopefully the tips that we shared with you last week have helped to prevent some cybersecurity incidents from occurring at your schools. We're going to rejoin our interview with Nicole, who's going to share some other strategies and tips for help keeping you, your students, and your schools cyber safe.
We're living in a digital world where classrooms have screens and endless possibilities, just a click away to fuel our dreams.
So I know things are going to happen, right? It's inevitable. Mistakes are going to be made. Human error is a real thing, right? So let's just for a moment just kind of say the bad thing happens and we have an incident, and the teacher is maybe the one that's being made aware of that incident. What should a teacher do if they either know or they suspect an incident taking place?
So first of all, I would say educate yourself on what your district expects. Now, if you say, what should I do? And they're like, oh, I don't know, report it to somebody. Here's what I say all districts should do. If something on your device looks fishy, pops up flashing some sort of urgent message, anything about encryption or ransom or wanting money or anything like that, stop, disconnect from the internet. That can be unplugging it if you're wired, disabling your wireless. If you don't know how to do either of those, ask your tech person, how do I disable my wireless? You're going to want to do that and then immediately notify your technology department. However they prefer to be notified, phone call, running down there screaming. If they have like a ticket solution and you need to submit a ticket, whatever's, yeah, hit the button. Ultimately, do not turn the device off. So it kind of is counterintuitive because you think, turn it off, we're going to just, no, everything's gone. But if it escalates to the level of something that actually needs to be brought to like an investigator or a cyber insurance company and the device is turned off, there is some evidence that's lost. Now, that's obviously worst case scenario. Most of the time doesn't really apply, but best practice is if you think you have some sort of security incident affecting your device, is get it off the network so it can't spread, and then notify somebody. I like to, so one of the things a couple of the districts ECMECC works with have done is come up with like a one-pager. And, we have them posted in the classroom, what to do if there's a bomb threat, what to do if there's a shooting, a fire, a medical emergency, a quick medical emergency. Is everybody else safe? Do we need to clean something up? Whatever. We have our quick little checklist, call 911. I like to see that for cybersecurity because when you're in an emergency situation, you're not at the top of your game, you're not thinking logically, you just are trying to fix whatever's going on. Having a quick little guideline for like, oh, here's the thing, do this, do this, do this, do this. All right, I know what to do. It's quick to get to. I don't have to flip through a big 20-page guide to figure out how to handle this. So that's a resource that ECMECC shares with districts who are looking to have a quick reference guide for various things.
I think that's a great idea. The ability to have guidelines is if when these events occur, what are your steps that you take, and so that would be like how do you respond after something has occurred? Is there things that you would recommend that teachers be doing pre those situations, like resources or trainings, things that they should be participating in on a regular basis, or tools that they could use?
So one of the things that a lot of districts are starting to do and kind of required to do by various insurance companies is called security awareness training. So what these are tools that do kind of like bite-sized training. Can be a huge thing, can be a small thing, around just explaining like what is phishing, how do I spot phishing, and give you some tools as an individual to help protect you from those things. And security awareness training can be all the way from like that clear desk, clear screen to phishing and like explaining what some of these tech terminology is, because I know it's overwhelming for me. So I can only imagine someone who's not dealing with, the tech world every day when we talk about phishing, spear phishing, whaling, vishing. All those things are like, what? But essentially, they're just someone trying to get information that they shouldn't have, getting you to do something to give them that information. So security awareness training is geared to help, inform and increase that security level for everyone. And then teachers can share that stuff with their students because almost all of them probably go home and hop on the internet, have email accounts, and as we talk about the higher grade levels, they start getting, banking accounts, and they have W-2s and stuff that needs to be protected. We all need to talk about those. And if we know somebody who's had something happen, we don't have to shame them, but we can share that experience, and help everybody just become a better secured individual. I know one of the examples that I don't think I've ever been in a group and brought this up and someone's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's never happened. I feel like we all can look to our friends and family and people we know and have had an incident where they've gotten the pop-up that I gotta click this link because I got a virus and these people are gonna help me fix that. And some of us know people who have actually paid for those things, and we want to educate and inform everybody because we don't like when people lose money.
Yeah, I think you made a pretty good point there about teachers being willing to share with their students some of this stuff. Why is it important that we include and integrate cybersecurity training for our students to instruct them? In fact, after all, next week, February 6th, is going to be National Safer Internet Day. So very timely that we have you on here talking about this. So what do you think, what are some of those best practices teachers can do to help their students also be safe online?
I think starting young is like a huge key, in talking about like security. We teach kids how to share and boundaries and personal space and all this stuff. Security is just something that has to be very basic for everybody because you can't do much of anything without pieces of technology. We're AI, we have cars that have computers in them now. We have to, it just needs to be a building block of creating a responsible adult that we continually teach them, what we should do, and then build on that as things change and progress, as technology changes and progresses throughout time. Um, and even understanding that, like, okay, you can't go on a teacher's computer and impersonate them. If you know something you're not supposed to know, then you probably shouldn't share it, and figure out how to protect that information because it is sensitive and it does have like a real impact on people, even though it may seem like, oh, it's just on the computer. Could be like a faceless, nameless person who you're affecting. Like cyberbullying is another huge thing. It's not really cybersecurity, but to me, it's the same. It just, it's having those rules and structure around internet and devices and connectivity to protect yourself and then also be a good person to the other people who also are out there.
I think those tie together very, very well. I think, if you're going to be a good digital citizen, and that, a lot of our training that we do with students is centered around that digital citizenship. But,
Mhm.
part of being a good digital citizen is being alert and being ready to recognize when there's a threat and then also being able to deal with it. So I think they tie together pretty well, honestly.
Mhm.
Nicole,
Yeah, not a lot of things pull that digital citizen, it's usually they're like taught segmented, but they should be together. I mean, to me,
Mm.
security is security, whether we're talking about locking your car doors or locking your computer. They both have negative impacts. They're just, the physical security piece is just a lot more tangible and can be a lot more devastating, especially in a school situation. But, you know, so talk about the thing that's in the news that every school fears is having a violent incident, and we do all this preparation for it, and we, work towards putting in secured entrances and verifying identity and all this stuff. Not saying that that's bad, but if your district gets breached and say like a fifth grader's information is all posted out there, social security number, address, mental health records, talk about employees, their payroll, all this stuff. To me, that's more likely to happen. We've seen that happen a whole heck of a lot recently. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's victimless, but it's not as devastating to a community. But that person who has that happen, it can be very devastating to them. So, in a perfect world, I would love to see cyber drills. We have fire drills, we have tornado drills. Let's have a cyber drill.
So, and have you seen a lot, between cybersecurity and, looking forward with things with AI as well? Have you heard a lot of talk and conversation centered around developing new policies and procedures or changing existing ones and things like that?
It's starting to get there, but policies in school districts sometimes gives everybody kind of like acid reflux, because they don't like to rock the boat, and we don't want to make anybody mad by changing something drastically. But having common sense type of things in place, it seems like I shouldn't have to tell people not to go on their Facebook and defame the school or talk about a child's IEP. But at the same point in time, if you don't spell that out, you can't really expect everybody to know and understand the why. So it kind of goes twofold, like the policies and procedures in place help protect the district, but you're also clearly defining what is acceptable. What does the district find acceptable? What do we not find acceptable? And then as far as changing them, well, I've looked at a lot of acceptable use policies that say we shouldn't forward chain mail, which has that been a thing for the past 10 years? There's another one in, I don't know if it's an acceptable use policy, but it is one of the policies that a lot of schools use that says every password by district employees needs to be recorded and kept somewhere. That shouldn't be a thing either. Passwords should be kept confidential, and only the user whose password that is should know it. So we do need to review those things, change with the times. In a perfect world, I'd like to see some cohesion between district leadership and the technology people, and like just come together and make things that make sense for everybody.
Yeah, great. And I think, looking ahead, what sort of things do you see on the horizon? Do you foresee cybersecurity being eventually mastered and we don't have to have these discussions anymore? Or what sort of emerging threats do you think will be out there that maybe we're not quite ready to deal with, but they're out there and we know they're coming?
The biggest thing that kind of scares me is right now my children are young, so not a lot of information about their education record exists. But as I look at districts who've had like these big breaches, I wonder, is that information just being sat on for use in the future. Like how is that information going to be used negatively? And it kind of
Sleeper agent
seems,
kind of a thing in a spy network. Those people that are embedded and then years later they activate themselves or something, kind of like that.
yeah, it seems like doom and gloom to think about the negatives, but like if you don't think about it, how do you prepare for it? So like, I don't know, just having a plan in place or ideas is kind of what I'm all about, because I don't want to be caught outside without an umbrella. I'm kind of one of those weird people like that. But so like one of the things that I would definitely encourage anybody, minors, parents of minors, freeze your credit report. So super simple to do. Create an account, click a button. My credit is now frozen. You have to do it 3 times for the different bureaus, or whatever agencies have that available to you. You click a button, say frozen, and if you ever need it, you sign back in, click a button, and say thaw or unfreeze or whatever, and then you can go apply for your car loan. Minors, their custodian or parent, whoever is legally responsible for them, has to submit a form, usually by mail, to freeze that person's report. I encourage everybody to do that because from some examples that have occurred, we know the breach happens, and then like a year later we're notified, and a year later we're given some sort of credit monitoring solution. That's too late. If we have it frozen before the breach happens, then it's less likely that someone's going to open a credit card in your name, apply for a loan, open a line of cell phone service, and all those other things.
And I think we'll add those links to those credit bureaus into
Yep.
our show notes, so that if you would like to click on them, to maybe you're a parent and you have your own young children and you want to be able to freeze, their credit reports, so that if there was something that was leaked, and even if their information gets brought out, a couple years down the road while they're still in school, then there's not as much damage that can be done to their financial futures, at least.
Mm-hmm. I mean, people need to kind of shift perspective and not be afraid of asking, why do you need that? Because sometimes it's not actually needed to, you walk into the doctor's office or something that says, give me your social security number. I don't think you have to feel bad if you do it without being rude. Do you guys actually need that? Do I need to include that on this printed piece of paper or like, what are you going to do with that after it's done? I mean, we shouldn't feel afraid to ask when that stuff is requested. And, building the confidence in children to ask some of those questions, because they typically just trust adults until something bad happens. Building that in, like, do I need to fill that out? Is it required? And especially coming from like, older family members who are like, well, I'm not giving you my social security number. But then seeing that they carry their social security card in their wallet, which is super easy to be stolen. So it's like, let's balance things and think logically about what we do to protect each other and ourselves.
Cool. Final parting shots that you have, Nicole?
I mean, if we really want to be secure, we turn off all technology and don't use it. One of the other points, I guess, and I've heard some districts say this too, like they'll have users who just shut down. They're like, well, it's so scary out there. I'm not going to check my email because I might get a phishing link emailed to me. I'm not going to adopt whatever technology because something bad could happen. That is like on the other side of the super, there's the 2 scales. You want to be somewhere in the middle. We need to balance security and productivity and all of that stuff. And that's why just talking about it between the different viewpoints helps us find that happy medium, because you can't just not use technology. That's not an option in today's world.
Especially in our educational world today. There's no
Especially.
way that you're going to be able to get through school. And, you know, you look even further ahead to future employment that our students will have. There's going to be no way that they're not going to have technology involved in their careers in the future. So I think, you know, that would be a huge disservice just to take everything away from both teachers and students. So
It would be very, yeah. I mean, you would be setting up the students specifically to not have a job. I mean, what kind of jobs can you think of that don't involve some sort of technology? It's impossible to say I'm not going to use it. You have to embrace it, but also be aware, educated and aware and alert to what you're doing.
Okay, Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. I think it's been very insightful and enlightening, at least for me it has. And I'm sure that our viewers will think the same. So really want to thank you, appreciate your time, and everything that you do to help keep our schools and our students safe. It's really, really important, and it's a great message to share out.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Integrate This EdTech podcast. We hope you pick up some valuable insights to help protect yourself and your students digitally, online, and even a little bit physical ways that Nicole addressed. Once again, I'd like to give Nicole special thanks for joining us here. Special thanks to co-host David Berner, and of course to you, all of our viewers, for joining us on this digital exploration. My name is Jeremy Mikla. Until next time, keep integrating, innovating, and shaping the future of education. Happy teaching.
And don't forget to subscribe to our Integrate This YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram and X for the latest tutorials and discussions in EdTech. Next week, Jeremy and I will be covering Google Chrome and our favorite features that you can find in that tool.
We're living in a digital world where classrooms have screens and endless possibilities. Just a click away to fuel our dreams.